Hi everybody, welcome to our channel, The Scary Tales. Our scary and horror stories are designed to send chills down your spine. Enjoy the spine-tingling stories thrill. Here's your horror stories about alone at night. 1. The man in the reflection. Lisa was brushing her teeth, getting ready for bed. The bathroom was quiet except for the soft hum of the fan. As she looked up into the mirror, she saw something that made her blood run cold. A man standing behind her, smiling. She spun around, but the bathroom was empty. Heart racing, she turned back to the mirror. The man was still there, grinning wider. His lips moved, whispering something she couldn't hear. Suddenly, the bathroom light flickered. The reflection lunged forward. Lisa screamed and stumbled back. When the light stopped flickering, the man was gone, but her reflection wasn't her anymore. 2. The whispering walls. Ethan had just moved into his apartment. It was an old building, but the rent was cheap. The first night, as he lay in bed, he heard whispers coming from the walls. At first, he assumed it was the neighbors, but when he pressed his ear against the wall, the whispers became clearer. They were chanting his name, over and over. Ethan. 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 He jumped back, heart hammering. Then, a soft tapping started from inside the wall, like fingers knocking on wood. He backed away, grabbed his phone, and turned on the flashlight. The tapping stopped, but just as he was about to turn around, a hoarse voice whispered right next to his ear, "Let me out." 3. The TV that watched Mia was home alone, curled up on the couch, mindlessly scrolling through her phone. The house was silent. Then, without warning, the TV flickered on by itself. The screen showed only static. Confused, she grabbed the remote to turn it off. But then she saw it. Amid the white noise, a dark figure stood in the corner of the screen. She turned her head to look at the same spot in her living room. Nothing was there. When she looked back at the TV, the figure had moved closer. Now, it was standing behind the couch. A shiver crawled down her spine. Slowly, she turned her head again. Still nothing. The TV screen crackled, and a whisper came through the speakers. "I'm right here." 4. The locked door. Jason had always been a deep sleeper, but that night, something woke him up, a soft knocking from inside his closet. He sat up, confused. Maybe it was the house settling. He ignored it and lay back down. Then the doorknob rattled violently. Jason's breath caught in his throat. There was no way anyone could be inside. He had checked the closet before bed. The knocking turned into pounding. Then, a voice. A raspy, desperate whisper. "Let me out." Jason bolted out of bed, grabbed his bedroom door handle, and yanked open. But before he could run, the closet door creaked open behind him. He didn't turn around. He just ran. 5. Footsteps on the ceiling. Sarah loved living alone, until the night she heard footsteps above her. She lived on the top floor of her house. There shouldn't be anything up there. At first, it was soft. A slow, dragging shuffle. She tried to convince herself it was just her imagination. But then, the footsteps stopped directly above her bed. A single loud thump shook the ceiling. Sarah grabbed her phone and turned on the flashlight. Her hands trembled as she looked up. A faint outline of 2 footprints was imprinted on the ceiling, like something had been watching her all along. 6. The phone called. Jake was home alone when his phone rang. He looked at the screen. It was his mother. "Hey, Mom," he said, answering. "Honey." Her voice was shaky. "I'm outside. Can you let me in?" Jake frowned. That didn't make sense. His mom was out of town for the weekend. He got up and walked toward the window. No car was outside. "Mom," he asked, his voice hesitant. "Let me in, Jake," she repeated, but her voice sounded off. Then his phone buzzed with a text. It was from his real mother. "Do not open the door." Jake's heart pounded as he looked back at the front door. The doorknob started turning on its own. 7. The doll that moved. Samantha found an old porcelain doll in a box while cleaning the attic. It had cracked pale skin and dark glassy eyes. She never liked dolls, but it had been a gift from her grandmother, so she placed it on a shelf in her bedroom. That night, she woke up to a soft clatter. She turned on the light and gasped. The doll was no longer on the shelf. It was sitting at the foot of her bed. She shivered, but told herself she must have forgotten moving it. She placed it back on the shelf and went back to sleep. The next morning, the doll was on her nightstand, its head tilted toward her, and its lips were slightly parted. 8. The eyes in the keyhole. Alex always locked his bedroom door before sleeping. It made him feel safe. One night, he woke up to scratching sounds outside his door. Maybe just a raccoon outside, he thought. But then, tap, tap, tap. Someone was knocking. He held his breath. His roommates were out of town. Slowly, he leaned forward and peeked through the keyhole. A bloodshot eye stared back at him. He stumbled back, heart racing. The doorknob rattled. Then the knocking stopped. The next morning, when he checked the hallway, a single red fingerprint was smeared across the doorknob. 9. The shadow in the hallway. Tom was watching TV late at night. The lights in the hallway were off, but from the corner of his eye, he saw movement. A dark shadow darted past the open doorway. He paused the TV. Hello? No answer. He got up, heart pounding, and stepped toward the hall. The shadows seemed darker than usual. As he flipped the hallway light on, the bulbs flickered and dimmed. Then, a cold breath blew against his neck. He turned. Nothing was there, until he looked at the TV screen. In the reflection, a dark figure stood directly behind him. 10. The reflection that didn't move. Emma was applying mascara when she noticed something odd in the mirror. She tilted her head slightly. Her reflection didn't. Her stomach dropped. She waved her hand. The reflection stayed still, staring back at her with an eerie smile. She slowly turned away from the mirror, heart racing. Then she heard it, a giggle. Turning back, she saw her reflection still frozen in place. And then, without warning, it blinked.